Story 1 by Reddit user Paranormal Coca. My parents built the house my experience happened in, so no one died in there. But the village I live in got burned down in the past and witches got burned. Also, there is a vortex or portal in the bathroom, mirrors facing each other. What I'm about to tell you happened 16 years ago, when I was 10. But I still remember everything crystal clear as if it just happened. As I said, I was 10 and always had the feeling of being watched and followed in the dark. Well, it was a bit more specific, but I will talk about it again soon. I always calm myself by telling myself it would be nothing. Every kid is scared of something silly like that, right? At least that's what I thought. Even though I didn't like the dark, I wouldn't say I was scared. I rather proved myself wrong by facing whatever I thought was making me uncomfortable. So again, when there was a dark area around me or if the lights were completely off, I often had very specific thoughts that tried to scare me. Like something is in there watching me reading my book, or something just waits till it's dark to grab me and scratch my arm right here. Like it was very specific what would happen in the dark. You know? When I was a kid, I loved documentary movies, so I knew about survival instincts and stuff. This is what I would tell myself to calm down. It's natural to be scared of the dark because we can't see. It's nothing there. To prove it to myself, I would do exactly what my instincts told me not to do. Most likely nothing happened as I told myself, but the next day I would have scratches and blue marks on my body where my instincts told me it would be, if it was dark. I would ignore it. I think I just didn't want it to be anything, since it would mean there really was something there. That was just to explain the background a bit. Let's talk about the night that changed my life. As I went to bed again, I had this feeling. This really bad feeling. It was way stronger than ever before. Something told me not to switch the light off. To clarify, I was already in bed. I just had to reach out to hit the light switch. But before I could turn it off, I froze and I just couldn't do it. My thoughts weren't specific this time. I just had this huge fear of doing it, and it was just like, you'll regret it. It took me a few minutes to convince myself I was childish and should just do it. Eventually, I turned it off. It was dark around me, like really dark. I had those glow-in-the-dark stars on my wall, but I couldn't even see them. It was just pitch black. Again, this huge fear overcame me and I just slept under my blanket. Everything just felt off. That's when I heard it, a creepy breathing right behind me in the room. I was facing the wall, eyes wide open. Again, I froze. I was too scared to turn around or even move. I was even too scared to breathe. I just hoped it wouldn't notice me. I can try to describe the breathing sound. It was almost as it would growl in a very deep tone every time it breathed out. While breathing in, it sounded like it was kind of hissing at the same time. I can't tell you how long I was just laying there, listening to the sound of its breathing. It felt like forever. But considering I didn't breathe the whole time, it couldn't have been that long. Suddenly, I heard the sound of something being moved through the air. How do I explain? Do you know the sound when you take a ruler and just move it in the air really quickly? It almost sounds like the wind in the trees, but different. Maybe you know what I mean. After I heard that sound, something hit my face. Well, more like brushed over it. I had long hair back then and I felt like it being moved forward with the force of it. And then, silence. All I could hear was my own heartbeat. I still couldn't move. Not because I was paralyzed or anything. It was more like I didn't want to move because I didn't know if it was still there, and if it would attack me if it found me. I think it was pretty aware of me being there the whole time, but back then I didn't know that. Everything would have been possible, you know? When my body forced me to breathe again, I was freaked out by the sound of my own breath at first. I thought it would be back. It took me a while to figure out it was just me and everything else was still silent. But I still just was laying there listening. This time I can't tell you how long it took me, but I didn't move until I noticed my stars on the wall glowing again. I reached out and turned the lights back on. I was shaking so bad. I remember how I couldn't hit the switch at first because I kept missing it because of this damn shaking. With the light back on, I realized this really happened, because there was the proof right in front of me. I had a teddy bear on my writing pult on the other side of the room. Now, remember the sound of something moving in the air and how something slid over my face? Well, there he was, my teddy bear, laying between me and the wall, his eyes facing directly towards mine. Something threw him at me. I am still living in the same house, and I am convinced whatever it was is still here. Over the years, I figured there are several ghosts in this house, and most of them are friendly. But there is also this really evil entity. Well, I'm not actually sure if it is just one. Most of the time, it is in my old childhood bedroom, so I avoid going up there. My family and me try to get rid of it several times, but every time there is something crushing our plans, and so it's still there. This is not the scariest thing I encountered, but it was the first one that made me realize there is paranormal things, and I kind of grew up with them. So, of course there is the entity that threw the teddy bear at me, but there is also this green-eyed entity. To be honest, I don't know if it is the same or if it is a separate one, but it is really scary and really bad. The first time I faced the green-eyed entity was when I was 14. I had this trapdoor ladder thing in my room that leads to the crawl space above, and I always had the feeling something was there, trying to break out. But sometimes my instinct said something was below it in the corner right behind my door. But I never saw a silhouette, just sometimes green glowing eyes watching me, and then vanishing. When I was 16, I saw them way more often, but not just in that corner. Almost every time I saw the eyes, I was scratched or bruised the next day. Sometimes I didn't know how. Probably because it happened after I fell asleep. But it would also happen when I was awake. I would feel something grabbing my leg and pulling on it, or the grip just tightens until I thought it would break my bones. And the next day there would be a bruise somewhat handprint shape. It had long fingers and claws, so more of a disfigured hand. The next entity I want to tell you about is the ghost of a cute little girl. She's very shy most of the time, but sometimes she gets very energetic and starts playing. When my parents installed the old TV of my uncle's in my bedroom, I began to see her. She is really cute, but I only ever saw her reflection in the TV screen when it was turned off. She is about 8 years old, I would guess, and in the reflection she always had a cute nightgown and a bow that tied her hair back. She has a really calm and friendly energy, and I love having her around. Since we don't have that TV anymore, I can't see her, but I know she is here. When she gets her energized moments is when I can feel her the most. Just lately, I was at my PC playing a game with friends, and suddenly, I had this euphoric and powerful feeling, like a little kid that had too much sugar and now wants to do everything at once. And my chair started to shake and almost vibrate like someone was shaking it really hard. And it just felt like the only thing missing is a child that says, "Come on, play with me already. I'm so bored." It always makes me smile. Sometimes she moves things and hides them, but she never wants to harm. Sometimes I feel someone tugging on my t-shirt, or just a random feeling of happiness while it feels like something tightens slightly around my leg, then disappears, as if someone had hugged it in a rush. The third one is my grandma, but about this one I'm not entirely sure. It could also just be me missing her. Before she died, I was at home all the time to take care of her. Every day she got worse and told me she wanted to die already, and the only way I could really help her was if I were to beat her to death. It was a really hard time, and one day she collapsed in my arms. She said it's all my fault and asked if I was happy now. She was brought to the hospital and I never visited her. One day, the doctor said she could go home the following week, so I was looking forward to seeing her again, but still didn't visit her. And the day before she could come home, she died. And I never had the chance to make things up with her. I still feel guilty about everything. Because I took care of her, we had this alarm system. When she pressed a button, a ringtone would go off, and one of my family would rush to help her. During the night she died, later I found out the same time she passed away, I heard the bell ring. I woke up and rushed down as I was used to. I was standing in front of her empty bed when I remembered she wasn't here, and I went back to bed. I had a strange feeling about it, but thought it was just my imagination. The next day, my mother told me in tears she thought she heard the ringtone the exact time the nurse told us she died. So maybe it was her saying goodbye. Or it was her telling us she is back, since that night I sometimes randomly can smell her perfume, someone laying their hand on my shoulder, and even someone kissing my forehead. It is nice to have her around, it's soothing, but at the same time I feel guilty and feel like she is still here because she couldn't talk to me, and the last thing she said to me was mean. I know she didn't mean it, and I told her it's okay and I forgive her, but she is still here. Those are the ones I can differentiate from each other, and who are around for a while. Sometimes I can feel other bad entities, but I don't know if they are the same entity or different ones. They all give me the chills. For example, I have something in the house. I call it the Watcher, since that's all it does. I think at least. I don't see it, like visually see it, but it's like this strong feeling that something is there. And I still know how it looks somehow. It's really hard to explain. It's like I can see it by feeling it. You know how blind people touch faces to know what someone looks like? It's like that, but just with my mind. Yeah, I think I can't explain it any better. The Watcher is an entity that never really moves. It's just there. Sometimes it is sitting on the stairs staring at me when I am at the PC. Sometimes it is cowering beneath my TV on the floor. Most of the time, it is standing in a corner of a room. Its body is changing all the time. Sometimes it's more like a little boy. Sometimes it's tall and slim. One time, it was just like a dark cloud. It got bigger and bigger until my whole bedroom was just it. But it's always just this black, shadowy figure. Maybe because I just sense it. It's not harming me in any way, but I always feel uncomfortable with it around, and always have the urge to stare back at it even though I know I should ignore it. And then there is Herbert. It's not a real name for one specific entity, it's more of a family thing. Every time something happens, we would say, "Ah, surely that was Herbert, our house ghost." It's more of a joke, you know? But I think there really is a poltergeist too, which would be the real Herbert, I guess. It has been around the longest, and it is pretty active. Alone in the past few months, my parents came into my living area 4 times, always asking if everything was okay since they heard huge thuds and noises, as if I was moving all my furniture around or falling down the stairs. Like really loud noises. But I never heard anything when they asked. But I also had it the other way round. Me running down to my parents' area to ask if everything was all right since it sounded like someone fell, and sometimes the noise would be so loud and powerful I could feel the floor shaking. But they would always tell me there was nothing. Why do I think it's a poltergeist even with so many entities around? Because I can't sense it. Every other entity in the house gives off something I can sense when active. But this one? Nothing. It could throw cans right in front of me, but I wouldn't sense anything about it. So I call it a poltergeist, but it could be something else too. Story 2. By Reddit user Snug in the Void. I spent August 2019 to August 2020 living in a Catholic volunteer house. While I was religious, I didn't really believe in much of the paranormal outside of cryptids and extraterrestrials. The church was more of a social thing for me, and I was deeply drawn to the ritual of it all. I point this out to make it clear that I was not looking for an experience in that house. It did not take long living there to start noticing odd things. It started off as the sound of footsteps. That was easy to write off. It was an old house, and perhaps the house was just shifting, as some people say. These footsteps became so constant that it clearly couldn't be the sounds of an old house. The footsteps were loud. They happened during the day and night, when the house was full and when it was just one person inside. I stopped denying this when the steps were obviously coming from the stairs. The clear sound of top-floor windows closing and opening started, and nothing sounds like that other than just that. The basement door to the outside would open by itself after knowing for sure it was closed and locked, not even a minute before it suddenly opened. It was like these sounds were well thought out. They would lead me to the attic, only for me to immediately hear rushing steps down the stairs on the floor below me. So often it would lead me to the basement, and my attention couldn't shift from the doors to the coal room. Looking at those doors filled me with an odd dread that would go away the moment I walked away. My housemates were scared, and being the only male in a Catholic program put a bit of pressure on me to do something. Just a cultural expectation. I tried getting a priest to go do a blessing, but he couldn't because of COVID. A strange bummer to me, given the theology. I ended up trying my best to bless the house with one of my housemates. That did nothing to stop any of it. Story 3. By Reddit user S. Zonar. So, I just moved from an apartment building to a quite old house a few months ago. This was at first quite strange to me, since the apartment I lived in was small, and the family that lived in the house wanted to quickly swap, even though they had a bigger house, and I think they have 3 children that will have to share 1 bedroom, but they still really wanted to swap with us. So, we did the swap, and there was not much going on to begin with. Things began to start to be a bit weird after about 3 months. At first, I started only hearing some weird sounds like footsteps coming from upstairs. Didn't really pay much attention to that. After some time, occasionally doors in the house, mostly to my bedroom, started opening by themselves. One time, on Halloween night, the doors to my room busted open like someone kicked it. I then started waking up sometimes at about 3 a.m. at night by my dog that sleeps in my room with me, barking and growling at nothing in the room. This happened a lot. Not every night, but maybe a few times a month. I started hearing heavy things being dropped in my bedroom from time to time, but when I went to check, I could never find anything that might have fallen, although sometimes I can see things falling on their own. One night, a cabinet opened by itself and a jar dropped from it. I remember a few days ago, I woke up in the morning to get ready for college, and my dad's guitar started playing by itself. It was not any songs, just like something was hitting random strings. After that, the guitar just fell. The guitar was standing there for about a month without anyone ever touching it. A few nights ago, I remember I woke up at around 3 a.m. to see my dog again growling at nothing in the room, when suddenly the door opened by itself. My dog walked out of my room through that door and started barking at something at the bottom of the stairs. I told her to come back in, close the door, but she did not stop growling. This might sound a bit weird, but sometimes you can feel like something is staring at you when you walk up the stairs. I've also got an Alexa, and sometimes when no one says anything, she would randomly go, "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that." Or she would start reading some random Wikipedia articles when no one was talking to her. I have an EMF, so I try to leave it on my shelf and record through the night with a night vision camera, but I did not manage to capture anything. One night, I did record something that looked like an orb, but I thought that it was just a bug. Story 4 by Reddit user Fanatic Mole. Hi guys, so basically this is a story about a house I lived in a year ago near my IT campus in the west of Ireland, which I believe was haunted. To begin, before living there I was always pretty skeptical of haunted houses, and for good reason. As a teenager, we would often visit haunted houses in our locality, which never really proved to be so, at least while we were present there. A few days after moving into our new college house for our final year of college, me and my friends went out to do shopping and get food. Upon arriving back, we noticed someone had left the oven on. We each denied it, but we knew someone had to have left it on. Looking back, this was probably the first unexplained incident, as thinking about it, nobody had even put food in the oven. Over the following weeks, we started to notice odd things happening, creaks, groans, and movements from the side of our eyes. At this point, 2 of the housemates were convinced of a haunting. However, myself and another was still not convinced. It was soon only me that was left unconvinced, as one day, while the other non-believer was home doing some studying, they looked up to see a face peering at them, before vanishing. It finally clicked for me when I woke up one night just before Christmas to see a very large man, or what I believe to be a man, staring at me from my wardrobe. Then things started to really get strange. Boot prints started to appear on the ceiling, making tracks across the roof. By the year's end, one of my friend's girlfriends swore she saw him upstairs in the room when he had been downstairs with me all along. Our shower, for which there were 3 switches needed to turn it on, would come on in the middle of the night, and one room of the kitchen would send shivers down our spines any time we went in there. There was one night in particular which really scared me. I always locked my door before going to bed, and distinctly remember doing this that night. When I awoke in the night, I could see the large man again. This time, at the end of my bed. I shut my eyes, telling myself it was a dream, and went back to sleep. The next morning, my door was wide open. So were all the doors in my wardrobe. And the guys had told me it sounded like I was dragging my school bag from one end of the room to the other all night. So many other things happened in that house, but this thread has gone long enough. I decided to post this after telling a Galway person about living in the estate without saying which house I lived in. He told me of a creepy haunted house at the back of the estate, which a family he knew had moved out of a few years prior. And when I told him which number it was and how I knew, he almost fell off his chair. Anyways, I hope you found this interesting. We all got out of the house unscathed, but it really made believers of all of us. Story 5 by Reddit user Crazy Icy II. A little background. This house was built in 1995 by my dad and my mum. It's a big house with 2 floors and a basement. We are the only family that has ever lived there. My grandmother died in the bathroom upstairs in 2010. No one else has died in that house besides her. My sister and brother, who I am going to be mentioning in this story, had moved out of the house before things ever started happening. I moved out about a year ago. It started a few years after Granny had died. We started hearing steps going up and down the stairs at night. We were spooked a little, but forgot about it soon because we just thought it was Granny's ghost since she's the only one who has died there, and we heard those steps very rarely. Maybe a year passes and I'm looking through my pictures of a relative and me that we have sent each other on Messenger. I found a screenshot that she had taken when we were on a video call at night when I saw some weird grey mass behind me. I zoomed in and was completely taken aback. There was this grey torso and face behind me in the darkness. I put some filters on it so I could see it better, cropped it because I had an ugly face on in the picture, and showed it to my family and friends as soon as I could. Everyone except my dad was completely shocked. My dad didn't believe in the paranormal at that time and kept denying when stuff happened. My sister said that the grey apparition looks like Granny, and I agreed. Anyway, a few years forward. My mum and dad are downstairs cooking something in the kitchen and I'm on the second floor in my bedroom sitting on my bed. I hear exactly 3 knocks on my door. It's normal that people knock on my door first before entering, but this time, no one opens the door to enter. I just stare at the door for a while and eventually ask, "Who's there?" I get no answer. I call my mum on the phone because I'm spooked. She said that nobody had gone upstairs. I went on to Google about 3 knocks on a door, and I did not like the answers I found. I panicked a bit and just waited until I felt like enough time had passed, that it was safe enough to open the door. I went downstairs and told my mum and dad what happened. Dad didn't believe me as usual, but Mum was a bit spooked. By now, I have also seen shadows walk past my bedroom door. Creepy, but nothing special in my honest opinion. Again, a few years have passed and I and my mum have moved out. It's a long story what happened and why we moved, but in short, domestic violence. Only my father lives in that house now. The house is empty and freezing most of the time because we live in Europe and father travels a lot due to work. It's also been put on sale. Since I moved out, the activity in the house has increased. My father has told me my sister has been hearing someone walking around, faucets turning on and off, doors opening, etc. He didn't believe in the paranormal before, but now he has experienced the spookiest of it himself. Yesterday, my sister, mum and me had met up at the house while father was at work to just catch up. At one point, my sister informed me her and mum were planning on staying the night there and asked me if I was staying too. I declined because I hate that house and it makes me have panic attacks. Well, fast forward to today. My sister called me and told me she was absolutely never going to stay in that house again because of what happened the previous night, and that I was lucky for choosing to go back home. Apparently, they had stayed up a bit late, and at one point she heard someone walking downstairs fast and going into the garage. She thought it was my mum up late, so she wanted to go and check what she was doing. To get downstairs, she had to go past my mum's room, and when she did, she saw that my mum was sleeping. She was spooked. The steps were fast, so how could it be Granny? She went back to her bed and couldn't sleep anymore, so she stayed up. After a while, she heard steps again, but this time in the room next to her. It may not seem scary to you because it's just some steps, but after years of thinking that it was our granny and then hearing steps that fast, I would have absolutely obliterated my pants. Thank you for watching and or listening to this video. Again, if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and hit the like button. And if you don't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and select the notification bell so don't miss out on any of my future uploads. Also, please leave a comment on this video letting me know what you thought of it. Comments really help with the YouTube algorithm and will really help my channel to grow. If you have a story you would like me to narrate, please email it to me at stories@daredeveril.com. I'm getting close to my next major milestone of 100,000 subscribers to this channel. Thank you to everyone who is continuing to subscribe to this channel and contributing to its growth by liking videos and leaving comments. Once I get to 100,000 subscribers, my plan is to reward you all with an epic video with over 3 hours of original content. It will probably be about Wendigos, as you all seem to love these stories. If that is the sort of thing you want to hear, please keep helping this channel to grow. If you want to support my channel even further, there are a number of ways you can do so. You can buy me a coffee on my Ko-fi account, which I recently set up. It's still in the early stages of being set up, but I plan to release some exclusive content on there in the future. Check out my Teespring store and consider purchasing one of my shirt designs. I have a design with a dogman, a Wendigo, skinwalker and Bigfoot, all on a zebra crossing. It's a must for anyone that likes these types of stories. You can also head over to Audible, where there is the book Punch by J.R. Park that I narrated. I get a small royalty if you decide to purchase it. Thanks again for watching.